if you've got an opposition offering, begging cooperation with the other side, then you can get legislation through very, very quickly without interfering with the legislative programme. So that's just a barefaced excuse. I don't know why they're being so hesitant, but plenty of people around, including me, will look at their reliance on Russian oligarchs and their involvement in the whole sort of system of support for the Conservative Party, and this reluctance to take more effective action, and think, well, why are they doing this? And the explanations they've offered so far have been inadequate.
James Heapy early on the programme. Live on Times Radio Breakfast, former Foreign Secretary Jack Straw. Good morning.
Good morning.
What do you make of the situation so far? And also Mr. Heapy's assessment there that the person leading the Russian forces is driven by some kind of hubris, some kind of emotional fervour?
Well, my main reaction is an emotional one of utter revulsion that an apparently civilized European country in 2022 could have launched this aggressive, unprovoked attack on another European country. It happened in the Second World War. And it's happened elsewhere around the world, but we didn't think it was ever going to happen again within the continent of Europe, and it has. So that's the second is to think about why this is, which runs into your question about the state of mind of President Putin. I mean, no more than anybody else do I have access to his medical records, but he shows all the signs of somebody who's become more and more detached from reality. I mean, one of the things I know from having spent 13 years at a senior level in the last Labour government is even in a very vibrant democracy like the United Kingdom, the longer you stay on, the more you get used to power. And that's why it's critically important to have elections and for there to be changes of power, even though it's uncomfortable if your party doesn't win. Putin's been there now for 22 years, I think it is, and he's managed to change the constitution, so he's just going to stay there. And he rigs things. So the world is the world according to Vladimir Putin. I thought those broadcasts were really odd in terms of his mental state, and also suggests that he's been fed stuff by advisors, which is not necessarily the truth. And part of the problem of running what amounts to a reign of terror, because he's got an intelligence apparatus, and he does go in for killing people he doesn't like, as we see here, is that people will be scared about speaking truth to power. So that's what I think. What I also think, however, is that in terms of where the West has got to, a critical decision it's got to take is to remove Russia from this international banking system called SWIFT.
Yes.
Now, commendably, the British government, as the US has accepted that should happen. The back marker here is Germany, who have invested too much in Russia. It's interesting that there's commentary in yesterday's German papers where their finance minister is saying exactly what I said. They've invested too much. They've been too soft on Russia, and they're now having a very rapid education. But I understand, and we would be in the same position, that if these things are not free for the West, they will have an effect. And I understand it from the Russians' point of view, because Russia has far more involvement Germany has far more involvement in Russia and the Russian economy than we do. But unless the isolation of Russia is increased and intensified, then Putin will carry on thinking he's doing fine.
And there's only so much that we can do to try and get our European colleagues on board with those international efforts, like you say, for example, booting Russia off the SWIFT banking system. But in terms of what the UK is doing and can do unilaterally, what do you make of our current package of economic sanctions against Russia? I mean, we've had the latest being the assets frozen of President Putin and Sergei Lavrov. I mean, how much of their own assets are in their own name, I do not know. And also, the largest bank in Russia, still not under any UK sanctions, and only a handful of named individuals, many of whom don't even have assets in the UK.
I think the Conservative government's approach to this is pusillanimous. And I'm pretty certain the reason for that is that they have been so reliant on donations to the Conservative Party from very wealthy Russian oligarchs. And these guys don't give their money for nothing. They give it for a reason to.
But that's a serious charge, Mr. Straw, isn't
It
it?
is.
Though?
No, I know.
That you
I know.
think that the government is holding back from cracking
Yes.
down on this, incredibly violent regime at the moment, purely because it got a few £100,000 from somebody who's married to somebody who used to be in Putin's government.
Not purely because of that, but I think this tilts the balance. I mean, otherwise one is left scratching one's head. Why, for example, legislation to ensure much greater transparency of transactions and donations, which was promised by the government, has just been delayed and delayed. Now they claim that it's because of a logjam in the legislative programme in Parliament. I mean, when I was leader of the House, I was in charge of the legislative programme in the House. If you've got an opposition offering, begging cooperation with the other side, then you can get legislation through very, very quickly without interfering with the legislative programme. So that's just a barefaced excuse. I don't know why they're being so hesitant, but plenty of people around, including me, will look at their reliance on Russian oligarchs and their involvement in the whole sort of system of support for the Conservative Party, and this reluctance to take more effective action, and think, well, why are they doing this? And the explanations they've offered so far have been inadequate.
We'll have to leave it there, I'm afraid. But thank you for your time this morning. Jack Straw,
Okay.
former Labour
Thanks so
Foreign
much.
Secretary.
Bye-bye.